Woohoo! And we're live once again for a LinkedIn for Authors Masterclass. And I have a very, very special guest today. I have the Lord himself, John Espirian. And he actually really is a Lord, guys. I'm not making that up. He's actually a Lord. He's got the title and everything. A little piece of dirt somewhere in the UK, so it's kind of fun. So anyways, John, we are talking today about community connections and your inner circle on LinkedIn. But before we get started, can you please just give a brief intro and tell people who you are and what you do, and then we'll get stuck in.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me back on the show, Gillian. Always a pleasure to be here. My name is John Espirian. I call myself the relentlessly helpful LinkedIn nerd. I used to be a software tester and a copywriter, and in the past few years, I've specialized really in LinkedIn best practice. So I train people on how LinkedIn works and how to get the best out of it. And I've really dived deep because I now run my own podcast on this topic. I run my own community on the topic, and I also run a conference on the topic. So I am your LinkedIn guy.
Woo! I love it. I love it. So I wanted to start off with this proverb because I love it. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think that's the whole theme today is that, you can do LinkedIn alone. And I know some people who just get in here and they just do it on their own. But there is just such a sense of connection and community here that you're working harder, not smarter if you do it alone. So John and I our relationship goes back now many, many years. We had the fortune of meeting in person at Uplift Live, #1, the first debut. We got to meet together, and then we actually followed up, and I met him in Wales. And it was just awesome that we got to have sort of a sit down and have lunch, and met Poppy the dog and everything. So it was just so wonderful. So John, let's hop into our first topic, which is making connections that matter. So of course, I'm connected to you, which snowballed and met so many people. But I wanted to start off with just a quick little story of serendipity and how, having those right connections really do matter. So when John wrote his Content DNA book, he wrote a blog post, an article, which was like, it takes the village to write a book, to publish a book. And it's a fabulous, I will actually link to that in the show notes today because I love it. And many, many other people I have sent it to and they've read it. They love it. And John is full disclosure, goes through all the people that helped him with his book. So one of the people that helped him was Lisa Decaux. Am I saying her name right? Lisa Decaux.
That's right.
And she is also a member of Espresso Plus. And Catherine Williams. So Lisa was his editor. Catherine Williams was his publisher, layout, typesetting person. So I remember reading that article. And then, of course, then I met Lisa through Espresso Plus, and we were connected, and she's wonderful. And I've sent many, many clients her way. She's been on my podcast. I just love her. So anyways, here's the story. So I had a client recently who reached out to me. They want to have their book published and they needed an editor. So I said, oh, she was in the UK, by the way, the client. And I said, well, you should work with Lisa. So I sent her to Lisa, and Lisa's like, I'm sorry, I'm too booked. I can't take her until May or something. She was really, really booked up. So I said, do you have anyone else that you would recommend in the UK that would be a good editor? So this is, again, why you want to have good connections. So Lisa gave me a couple of connections, and she said, by the way, there was a post today that you might want to check out. And it was by, let me just see her name, Karina Cunningham, who is over in the UK. And she had done a post that said, recommendations, please. Tell me your best editors and, book publishers and different things. So she was collecting recommendations. So I'm reading through this, I'm getting names and this and that. And I came across this one woman, Jenny Jolly, who lived in the United States. And I went, well, I'd love to know other editors. Maybe I'll reach out to her. So I connected with her. She followed back and said, hey, Jillian, why don't we have a Zoom call? Just get to know you. I said, sure. So have a Zoom call, get along famously. she's just the sweetest person with chickens. And she's just, I love Jenny. So anyways, I said, Jenny, I'd love to have you on my podcast. Had her on my podcast. So John is listening to the podcast, and he's out for his walk. He's listening to the podcast, and he says, I got to connect with Jenny. So they're now connected. We had a Bitmo parade of Bitmos and chickens. All three of us had a little Bitmo parade in the comments of my podcast post, and John got to know her, and now they're connected. And I think it's just amazing that I think I missed a step. Jenny Jolly was recommended by Catherine Williams. So here's the connection. So here John knows Lisa. He knows Catherine. They both pointed me, and how it all goes round in a circle. So I just love how everything connects, and then it goes a full circle back to John. So that's just brilliant.
It's great how connectedness works, isn't it? And it kind of speaks to those breadcrumbs of trust that we are laying all the time. I always think that people can represent being an expert online, but you don't really know until you open up your checkbook and work with them. So once I worked with people like Catherine and Lisa, then I knew that they really knew what they were talking about, and they could really do a good job. And I'm glad that I wrote that piece after I wrote the book, because finding that information at the time that I wrote that piece wasn't easy. But I thought, I've been through the pain of doing this myself. And it was actually easier for me to write a book than it probably would be for the average person, because I had an editorial background. So I knew the kind of the nominal steps that it takes to produce a book as a self-published piece of art. And so I knew the kind of people that I would need to hire. But once I had hired them and had the experience and understood what the costs were and understood what the challenges were, my natural thing is to try and share that with as many people as I can, and hence that blog post. And that's why some of those people have had a bit more exposure, I guess, because of that. And now some years later, we're talking about them on a live stream. And isn't that cool?
It is. It's very cool. It's very cool. So, John, when we talk about making connections that matter, I think it means that you have to go for quality over quantity. Would you agree with that? That it's like it's very easy to have, thousands of people following us. I don't even know where you're at anymore. You're 30,000, 40,000. I can't keep track. You have, but you don't have, those are followers. You don't necessarily have that many connections, right? So John, can you kind of tell us the difference when you're kind of saying, who will you let into your connection world versus anybody can follow you, but connections, how do you kind of go for that quality over quantity?
Well, I'm a little bit more tolerating of people who try to join my network because of the changes to LinkedIn that mean that people can't personalize their invitations as much as they used to be able to. There was no cap on that before, but now most people are on a free account, and free accounts are limited to 3 personalized invitations per month. So that means that I'm not expecting so many people to try to introduce themselves before they connect with me. So if I look at someone's profile and I think that they look interesting, I'm happy to accept them into my network. But then I want to see that they're willing to at least talk back to me and give me a decent reason for why they connected. So there isn't a single case where I haven't replied to a new connection just to, invite them into my network and say, look, how did you come across me? Did you find me through the podcast? Was it a personal recommendation? Just so I've got an anchor point for the future. And that hopefully will lead to some good connection down the line. We'll chat more often, and I might be able to open doors for people. But I think just building up the numbers on its own, that doesn't do anything for me, really. So I do have quite a lot of followers, but I've got fewer than 10,000 connections. And I try to talk to as many of those as I can. It's actually one of the topics, the main topic I'm going to be talking about at the conference that's coming up, is the power of direct messages to really be memorable and transact more business, actually. So it's a smart business thing to do, and it's a human thing to do. LinkedIn is a big networking room, ultimately, isn't it? So if you're not going to talk to people, what's the point? I don't really get it. So I'm all about chatting wherever I can. And if I can promote good people That's what I'm really interested in, because there's a lot of charlatans out there. But if I've got direct experience that someone really knows what they're talking about, they're a good person with good values, I will, shout them to the heavens if I can.
I love that. I love that. So I wonder if you could give us a tip on, if we make a new connection with somebody, what should we do to get the conversation started? Because I don't personally like it when somebody connects with me and says, okay, how about we have a Zoom call? It worked with Jenny because we
Mm.
had similarities and it was good. But I get a lot of people who are, I don't even really know why they connected with me in the first place. And the first thing they want to do is get on a Zoom call. And it's like, I don't even know what you do. You don't even know what I do. That could be a waste of our time. So can you kind of give us some ideas of how to kind of manage these first time connections?
Yeah. I mean, it's all about looking for clues in their profile and their content for me as to what kind of topics you can talk about that aren't jumping into sales. Because I mean, I hate that kind of approach. It's more about establishing a human connection with people first. I think the only people I would probably want to speak to on Zoom quickly is someone I've seen, let's say, on a YouTube video or in a podcast, and I just already know this is exactly the kind of person I'd love to have a chat with. They've already exposed, the way they think and their behavior and so forth. And that's fine. But generally speaking, yeah, if someone comes straight to me and asks to have a Zoom call, if I said yes to all of those, I probably wouldn't get anything else done, because a lot of people want a slice of your time, and that you don't know what's going to come out of the back end of that. So no, I'd rather leave that for a little bit later. But look for the clues on people's profiles. I always recommend, and I do this on my own about statement, I give people things that they can talk to me about. Often people don't read my about statement, so they wouldn't even know that. But if they did, that gives them a kind of non-threatening thing to say, to establish a deeper connection with me. And I know this will sound silly sometimes, but you gave the example there of the chickens. I was like, well, if I'm talking to someone about that, that is a reason for me to remember you versus everyone else. It's the chicken person, right? So just things like that reveal the non-work side of you, can be really, really powerful. So look to reveal that on your own profile if you can.
I love that. And just as an extra shout out to Jenny Jolly, she it so leans into the chickens that she has a newsletter called Fowl Language,
I saw.
FOWL, which is very clever. That's a very clever thing to do. And I think both John and I appreciate smart, clever people. It's like we don't get enough of those in our lives. So that's really, really good. So John, I'm going to hop to the next topic, and then we're going to go do some. We'll go chat with our people who are connecting with us today on the live. So I just want to talk about collaborating with other authors and industry pros, because we're all subject matter experts in particular industries, and so sometimes we want to have other people that are authors and subject matter experts. But for some people, I know a lot of people is like, I don't want to connect with my competition, so like, why would
Mm.
I want to connect with another author? Why would I want to, why do LinkedIn trainers connect with LinkedIn trainers? Aren't we all fighting, aren't they all fighting for the same piece of the pie? That's Brenda's thing, but they're not. So what do you say about collaborating versus the competition?
I think if you're a fearful sort of person, the kind of person who wants to gatekeep all of your knowledge, and you don't really understand how the internet works, then that's fine. You can build your own island and never talk to anyone else other than clients, and good luck to you. But I don't think that model really works very well anymore. If people don't get the answer from you, they're going to get it from somewhere else. So why not try and form positive relationships with your peers, so that you can be seen as a trusted voice within the space, and have a chance to learn more and get new ideas and maybe refer work to each other. I think I see only positives. Yes, of course, every now and then you're going to find someone who tries to jump into a pool where there's lots of other people who know similar things to them, suck up all of their knowledge, and then go and forge it off for themselves. But those people being quite selfish, I don't see that they'll get a lot of respect. So if people want a referral, those people are probably not going to be the first person named. Whereas if you can be helpful, this is the whole crux of my brand, really. It's just, if you can be helpful, high utility people will end up being remembered and referred, and people will want to reciprocate as well. If you do a favor to someone with ostensibly without asking for anything back in return, you'll build up a psychological debt with them. They'll want to repay you. They'll want to open doors for you. It's just a good thing. And as I said earlier, you will just learn more. I mean, I live and breathe on LinkedIn, for that's my jam, right? But that's not to say that I know everything about the platform. And I love communicating with my peers around the world, because invariably, someone will spot something that no one else has seen, and then they'll share that information, and we all get stronger because of it. No one's losing out because of that. We're all getting smarter together. That's a great space to be in.
And that's so true, because you can't know everything. You just can't know everything. So having, like, what was this morning? Mick Adam woke up and said, "Why was my profile in Chinese?" It was just like, and somebody else chimed in. So it's if you don't have other people to bounce ideas off of, you just like, why is this happening? You're in a vacuum. And I think too, especially for authors, it's like, if you are in the midst of writing a book, well, on book launch day, you want people cheering you on and saying, yay, even if they don't buy the book, just congratulating you, helping you spread the word. Well, if you're not paying it forward at the beginning, why is everybody going to be there to support you? That doesn't make any sense. So I think you just kind of have to think, how can I help? And just believe in, like you said, instead of scarcity, maybe abundance. The more I help, that either it pays it forward to other people or it comes back to me, and either way, it's good. Just makes more goodness in the world. So
yeah, that's right. Too. I mean, we just, not all of us have a KFC recipe to protect, so in that case, you probably would be a bit secretive, but we're not like that. Consultants and coaches online, we're not in that space. And we will get better if we help each other. And I think those are the people that I remember, and they're the ones I want to celebrate as much as possible.
I agree. So I'm going to hop over to the comments, and oh my goodness, there's a lot. Okay. So we have Jane who's sleeping, but she left this YouTube comment. "This will be fascinating chat. Jillian and John, looking forward to it." We love Jane Jackson over in the Australia. So Marcello says, "Jeff Young, hello. I love," and see, this is again, a wonderful thing about a live, is that there is networking and connecting going on that has nothing to do with John and I. Just people coming and being with each other in the comments. It's like a party. It's always like a party. And I absolutely love that everybody is talking back and forth. They're saying hello. They're passing the popcorn. We got Kathy York, who's a friend of both of ours, and she is coming in from Wesley Lafayette, Indiana in the US. We've got Jeff, and he's always in the front row. So we love that you're here today, Jeff. LinkedIn user, just a setting issue, but we know that they're there. We'll see who they are afterwards. Felipe is here. Looking forward to the conversation. Jillian and John. Team Live. I love it. Team Live. And Marcello is coming in from Atlanta. Lisa, we were just talking to you. We're just talking about you. So her ears must be burning. Jeff, so grateful that I'm seeing you and hearing you in English based on the latest LinkedIn glitch. Thought it might be Spanish or German. Josh, can you fill us in? What is that about?
Yeah, I'm going to be mentioning it on tomorrow's show as well. Yeah, it's just something that a number of LinkedIn trainers noticed today, where language settings were just randomly changing on people's profiles, and so various fields were coming up in different languages: French, Spanish, German, Japanese. I've seen a couple of times as well. And Kevin, I think, made the most prescient comment on this, which is that it might be the sign that LinkedIn is testing an auto translate feature that just
Oh.
has somehow leaked into the user interface unintentionally. So perhaps something is coming soon, because it is a bit of a weird thing to have just randomly gone wrong for a set of people. So might be one to look out for. And I always think of these things as kind of tremors before the main earthquake, and hopefully it's not going to be a bad feature that they roll out. But auto translation hopefully sounds like a good thing. So, but for now, it's nothing to worry about. Just refresh your screen. It'll probably go away and you'll revert back to English or whatever your default language is.
This is when I always go, maybe I better do a data download, like get an archive of my data just in case something weird is happening. So you just go, okay, hold on to your hat. Something fun is about to roll. It's about to roll. So we got cheers for Lisa. Yay. And Mary Wu says, and he is relentlessly helpful. And by the way, you actually did you trademark that phrase?
I did. I did.
love
Yes. I mean,
that.
I've been using it for long enough. I thought it was about time. So, yeah, I did that a couple of years ago, actually. And yeah, I mean, in terms of that phrase, that's done a lot of heavy lifting for me since I randomly blurted it out in 2017. But as really what I'm saying in Content DNA, and that was kind of that phrase was the inspiration for writing that book, is that you've got to try and make the biggest promise that you can keep. So, I'm trying to tell people that I'm relentlessly helpful. That takes a lot of work to actually fulfill on that promise. So
Absolutely.
whatever you say about yourself in your LinkedIn profile, wherever you show up online, just make sure it's true and do your very best to live up to whatever promises you give people, because there's nothing more disappointing than, hearing someone say that they're relentlessly helpful, then actually they turn out to be not so much when you deal with them in private circles, So yeah, fulfill your promises wherever you can. That's just general life advice for you rather than anything to do with LinkedIn.
I love that. I love that. Honored and happy to be here from Denver, Colorado. Jeff says he's talking about the Chinese. And so all that wonder, we're getting lots of people saying hello. Oh, that's interesting. It's Joyce. It's Joyce who is our mysterious LinkedIn user. And Tom is here. He's tuning in live. I love that. And I think that's Yolanda that's tuning in. And Felipe, let me see if we have any questions. Okay, everybody's just chatting. Sue Griffey is happy to be here, and she's coming in, I think, from Florida on vacation today. So we're honored. We have Muhammad is coming in from Pakistan, and Friday the 13th. So you know what? That's true. It is Friday the 13th today. So thank you, Jeff, for pointing that out, because that goes. Look at this. Mary Wu says, I know Jenny Jolly. So it's just like, it truly is a small world. And it's just really neat how, the world works, that, you think the world's so big, but it's actually a little bit smaller than we think it would. So that's just kind of interesting to know. Stephen Eng is here. Hello, Jillian and John and everyone else tuning in from New York. So thank you, Stephen. And we have Lynn, who's just a sweetheart, and she is here and she's joining us. And Leslie Alexander. Do you know Leslie Alexander, John?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
she's another wonderful one. And she says, like the 5 degrees of separation. I think it's 6 with Kevin Bacon, but I think Kevin D. Turner always says on LinkedIn it's 3 because it's like it gets smaller and smaller. So that's good to know. And then Carrie says, hi, Jillian and John. So happy to be here. So we're happy you're here. We're happy you're here. So John, let's go back. And so I wanted to talk about finding the right mentors. And so I just want to give a shout out to you. You were my mentor. When I first got on LinkedIn, I didn't know what I was doing. I got myself in all sorts of trouble. Found John, did a Google search. That was the one thing I knew how to do. I was really good at Googling, and I found John, and it was just like, I am just like going to jump on this guy's coattails and learn everything I can from him. And I have, been a part of everything that you've ever done, John. I've always like raised my hand, joined, and I'm always so exciting. And you have a mentor which actually helped you get your name. Can you tell that story about how you became relentlessly helpful through your mentor?
Yeah, well, I'd been following the work of a marketing expert and author, Mark Schaefer, for some years. We got a chance to meet in Edinburgh in the UK. We were speaking on the same stage, and he asked me an unscripted question at the end of the talk, and he said, how are you going to remain relevant in a world full of many options? And I said to him, I'm going to keep creating relentlessly helpful content. I'd never said that phrase out loud before, but sometimes, when you say something and there's just a certain quality of the sound around you where you can just feel like people are going, "Oh, that was interesting," and that moment was videoed. So I'm fortunate to have the moment where I said it. And then someone sent me a postcard through the post and just put that as a quote on the postcard and said, "This was my favorite moment of the conference." And I thought, wow, that's that those couple of words have really landed. And somehow I've said kind of what I am in a real nutshell. And that's very powerful because, the more compact your message, the easier it is to transfer to the brain of someone else. And that means you're more likely to be remembered. So, yeah, I just used it ever since in everything I do because, there's a power in repetition. You keep saying the same thing, people will remember it. And eventually we've got to the point where, now it's a trademark phrase for me. So all of that because someone I follow and had an opportunity to speak with gave me space to come up with something that described who I was. And that element of my personal branding is what inspired me to write the book, because I just thought, well, I had a moment of blind luck there. I mean, I'd never planned that, didn't expect it. What can other people do to try and boil down their message as well so that it comes across in everything they do, so that they can be more memorable and therefore hopefully stand out in a market with lots of options? And that's how Content DNA was born, which that also is a trademark term. Content DNA is mine too. So yeah, it's just funny how these little moments can really change lives. And that's probably the most important thing that's ever happened in my business. And it just happened on a random afternoon, totally unplanned. And there we are. I took it and ran with it.
Oh, I love that. I love that story. And you've paid it forward when you wrote your book. And I remember reading about that. I think that was in your book, the story.
Mm.
And I remember in your book, you talked about it's so important to be known for one thing. Like, don't be the
Yeah.
person that she does this and this and this, because nobody can remember that many things. And I remember reading that, and I loved your book, by the way. And I remember sitting there and I thought to myself, what is the one thing? Like, I'm not relentlessly helpful. I try to be, but you own that. And I thought, well, what do I do? And I thought, I make things easy peasy. That was just like popped into my head. And the next thing I know, it's like that became my phrase. And it was like I used it, I started using it. And I would hear people talk about me on a live and they'd say, I don't remember her name, but she was the easy peasy lady. And I saw her talking about video. And then the next thing I know, that became the name of my company, Video Easy Peasy. And then I switched to books. And so it's Easy Peasy Books. And only because the other domain wasn't available. But it just goes to show you that, like, you were my mentor and I got my thing, and you got your thing from Mark Schaefer. So it's just amazing, again, how finding the right mentors can literally change your life, change your business. And so for anybody who's watching or listening, I hope you have mentors, and they can just be people you follow. You don't even have to actually know them personally, but you want to, if possible, it is good to have them, have that personal connection with them. But having those right mentors, they should represent your core values so that you're just like, okay, I see everything they do. And if you're following people that don't represent your core values, I would really urge you to rethink that, because that will affect you. So it's like one of the things, sorry, I'm going to be a little bit too glowing here, John, but one of the things that I always like about you is you talk about being ethical and honest. And I remember when you started your Espresso Plus community, you wanted it to be for ethical, honest business owners. This was not going to be a pod. We're not going to pay a fee so that everybody will like all my posts. Yeah. And I think that's really important, is making sure that there's that alignment with your values, because I just think that matters so much.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just comes from my personal beliefs, is that we should just try and do good in the world, really. And yeah, there's a lot of bad practice out there. There's a lot of people who are, they're selling wonderful sounding solutions, but actually, I don't think a lot of it stands up to scrutiny. So you've mentioned engagement pods. That's one of the things I really hate. People just artificially liking each other's content because they know that it'll drum up their numbers. But long term, is that sustainable? Does that actually find you really good clients? I don't really think it does. The problem is, I think, that the ethical operators out here, and you're one of them, but people like my friend Ella Orr, who I know do things ethically, but it means that your marketing, the messaging that you deliver, often doesn't sound that sexy, because it's always underpinned in, here are the methods, but by the way, this will probably take you about 3 years for this to actually work, and you're gonna have to put a lot of hard work into it. That's not a message that's easily packaged and delivered. No one wants to hear that. They want to hear, I want washboard abs tomorrow, and I want to make $1 million tomorrow. That's what they want. But we can't promise them that, and there's no point even trying to, because then you're as bad as all the people who are doing the shady tactics. So that means that our voices tend to get drowned out quite a lot by the people who are doing the big flashy, buy now, you'll get 1 million followers tomorrow, and all that stuff. And so it's like the system is kind of against us. And so if people are fortunate enough to find the ethical operators and then listen to them, then hopefully they'll get the right advice and they'll be on the right pathway. A lot of people I've helped have been the ones who've gone to the flashy people first, and then they've built up loads of really weird connections, or they've bought followers, or they've been in engagement pods, or they've been banned because they did all sorts of things wrong, and maybe they didn't even know that they were doing wrong. They were just told to do something and it hasn't worked out for them. And then I come in and just fix stuff for them and tell them, you were badly advised. And it's one of the core things that I always keep coming back to, is how do you know who is an expert? Because everyone's talking this great game, but how do you know? I mean, you said that you discovered me some years ago, but you were just as likely to have found someone who told you completely the wrong things, and you wouldn't have known any different unless you're already an expert in the field, which you weren't.
Right.
So how do you know? And really, I think actually you won't know for certain until you work with people in some capacity, because even things like testimonials sometimes aren't actually genuine. It's when you really work with someone that or you have a really, really close bond over a long period of time, that what they're like, how they operate, and also how they act when the camera isn't on, right? That's a really important thing for me as well. Like, I can be all, nice and supportive and helpful in my public content, but in a one-to-one situation in a DM, for example, where no one else is going to see that, I could say, well, yeah, I don't have time for that. Don't care. You're not paying me, go away. That's not congruent, is it? That doesn't represent an ethical operator. So trying to see all of those things and building a rounded picture of what a person really is important. But as I say, it's not a very sexy message to deliver.
No. And actually sometimes that's very hard. I had somebody recently that, wanted to talk about, they wanted to publish their book and they wanted to guarantee that they'd be, an Amazon bestseller. And I said, I can't guarantee that. I said, I can help you position yourself, but I'm sorry, I don't have a bunch of bots standing by that will buy your book. And, this is not the way I roll. So I sent them along. It's just like, no, can't work with you. That's not who I am. And they're like, well, there's other people that will promise money back guarantee. And I said, then that's who you go work with. But
Yeah.
it's not realistic, and it's not ethical, and it's against Amazon's terms of service. So, you have to play with the rules. And it's hard sometimes because you see work go and you're just like, but you just go, okay, well, then something wouldn't have been right working with that person anyway. So I always believe that you trust your gut and do the right thing. So anyways, moving on to our next topic, LinkedIn groups. So we talked about, connections. So now I want to kind of go deeper down into communities. And LinkedIn is a huge place. So you get on LinkedIn and you're just like 60 million, billion, trillion people. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn. Now we can have those one-to-ones, conversations in DMs, which you alluded to. You can have group DMs, which is like an awesome thing. And I'm in many, many different group DMs, and they're very supportive conversations where you can chat back and forth with people. Now, then there are public groups and private groups and LinkedIn groups and free groups and whatever. So you have run both a free LinkedIn group, and now you've switched to a premium model. So let's talk about LinkedIn groups and sort of, except for Toastmasters, the official Toastmasters group, and Jeff Young's group. He has a very nice group, and and he runs a tight ship. But pretty much, I don't really know any other groups that I would recommend. So what are your thoughts on free LinkedIn groups?
I mean, the technology is there for them to work, but often they don't because they require a lot of effort, which, people don't have the time for. I think people don't really know how to manage them properly. So I ran a free group it was probably about 4 or 5 months only. And the only reason I ran it for such a short period is because it got so busy that it took over my life, and I realized that I either had to monetize it or drop it, because at the time I was a copywriter, and so LinkedIn wasn't my main gig at that time. And I chose to monetize it, and then we ended up with the Espresso Plus community off the back of that. But yeah, I mean, for a group to be successful, you need things like, you need a very, very clear purpose, you need a very clear leadership structure. The leaders of the group need to, be posting things that are useful into the group. They need to be encouraging discussion. They need to make sure that the rules are clear. They need to make sure that people are accountable if they don't follow those rules. And, coming up with new topics all the time, keeping things going, making sure that people get their notifications, and that, that you make connections between people in the group. It's a lot of effort. And the user interface isn't brilliant, I must admit, on LinkedIn. So often people don't see notifications, or they don't see posts from the group. So all of this takes a lot of effort to keep it going. And consequently, you end up with people not really participating that much in groups, or the group going sour because the leaders of the group have got greedy, and they just use it as a kind of sales broadcasting tool. They've got a captive audience of 100 or 1,000 people, and they can just try and spam them with their offers, and that, very quickly turns people off. So it's a hard gig. I agree with you. I mean, I'm not involved in Toastmasters, but I totally believe what you say there. I have been in Jeff's group. I am in Jeff's group, and I know that he runs that one very, very well. But yeah, most groups don't really live up to the hype, and therefore there's a prevailing perception, probably an accurate one, that LinkedIn groups don't really work. Most of them probably don't. But if you're committed to it, clear leadership, clear purpose, and you keep encouraging people, then they certainly can work. And I'm one of the few exceptions, I think, where the group does work pretty well. And this is something, again, I'm going to cover this on tomorrow's episode of the Inform podcast as well. But it's a tough one to get right.
Definitely. And, it's sad because, to be honest with you, I don't use Facebook, but I just think Facebook did a much better job. And I still know so many people that have, they have some sort of workshop or program, and then to supplement it, they run a Facebook group, only because they say it gets much better engagement. And I don't know what it is, because I've actually been in some really, really good LinkedIn groups, And one is a TEDx group for women. It's a fabulous group. But the problem is that I don't see the posts. It feels like it doesn't get enough. I think the moderators are good. They keep everything in line, but it's almost as if the visibility is suppressed. And I don't know why can't we get email notifications that there's a digest or something that, like, at the end of the week, this is the post that we're covered or something like that. And it just feels that groups are on LinkedIn. That's like the orphan. Like LinkedIn doesn't really take care of them.
There is a partial email digest option, which is if people have their notifications set up correctly, then the admins of the group can recommend up to 3 posts per week, and those posts then go into that email digest. So that does work for some people, but it doesn't work for absolutely everyone. But there are other options, if you want to increase engagement and visibility of your group, for example, and I think it's been said in the comments already, you can encourage people to click the bell that's inside a group. So a lot of people don't realize that groups have their own bell system. So if you tap the bell for a group, then that means that you should be notified next time there's a post in there. For people who are slightly more technical than that, you could even say, well, look, this is how to get the date ordered set of posts of everything that's in the group. And you could bookmark that so that you get into the habit of just checking what's new today. But that then puts a bit of technical onus on the person taking part. Really, it should be a lot easier than that to get involved. But those are the limitations that we have with LinkedIn groups. The killer feature that's missing, of course, would be to be able to go live privately inside a group. I think that would be wonderful. I don't really do live videos, but if I had the access to do that exclusively for my members, then I absolutely would, because that would be an easy way of providing more value to them. And that would encourage more engagement. The other thing you can do as well, of course, is to make sure that you are regularly direct messaging the people who are in your group, because then they're more likely to see your group posts because of that. But if you run a large group, that's very, very difficult unless you employ people who are going to be your captains, who are going to try and keep the engagement moving forward. So it's a tough gig.
It is a very tough gig. And for anybody who is in a group, is there any tips that you'd give if I'm a member of a LinkedIn group? Is there any tips? Probably just making sure my notifications are set, or...
Yes, but also, make sure that you look at the members of the group. You're allowed to see those people. And if you're not connected, you have the opportunity to message them for free without using up any kind of in-mail credit or anything like that. So you can do a bit of that to try and get to know people. And so long as the purpose of the group is clear, you will become a more valuable member of that group if you support the leadership in achieving their aims. So, in our group, we talk mostly about LinkedIn best practice tips, or, questions around what's going on with the user interface, or how you connect with people, that kind of thing. So people in our group who see that that's our aim will try and, post content or support the leadership in making sure that everyone understands how that works, and they will answer questions. That's how to be a good citizen within the group, is to show up and be helpful wherever you can. It always comes back to, how can I be the most helpful person in this moment?
That's true. That's true. Okay, so let's head back to our comments, and hopefully I can find my place. Here we go. Okay, so Jeff is they're dancing now. They're having so much fun. So Jeff is dancing with Leslie in the comments. So it's just so fun. So Felipe says, John Espirian, the testing you would do with LinkedIn and data you provided always added so much value. So that's nice. That's a really nice piece of feedback. Carrie says, build your tribe of people that you know, trust, and support each other. I like that. That's nice. Stephen, quality first, an engaged and vibrant audience carries weight. Look at these intelligent comments. I love this. And Leslie says, thanks for taking the message limit into account. Those of us on free LinkedIn appreciate it. Okay, I missed that one. What was that? John?
Yeah, it's when I mentioned that there's only 3 personalized invitations on free accounts
Mm,
per month. But, there are ways around that. And no doubt we've probably talked about that before. But if people are creating content publicly, then getting involved in their comments is a kind of way of introducing yourself and giving them a little wave and showing that you support them. So even if you did follow that up with an empty invitation to connect, hopefully you've made enough of an impact for them to go, oh yeah, I remember Leslie.
mm,
I'll accept that invitation. And similarly, you can do things like, if you're looking at someone's profile and you'd love to connect with them, but you don't have any credits left to send them a message, well, maybe a mutual connection,
mm.
and that person could be someone who introduces you to, in which case they can start the DM, doesn't cost you any credits, and the kind of the social setup of that interaction means that the other person's much more likely to say yes to making a connection anyway. So there are ways and means around it, but I do think this is a particularly backwards move from LinkedIn, which is meant to be, it's not just a job resume site, is it? It's meant to connect the world's business professionals, and cutting off that route for people to say hello to each other even is, I think that's a very much a backward step, and I hope they reconsider that in the future.
I agree, because I think it was good manners, just good manners to be able to have a message, with your invite. So, and I like that you kind of brought it in, sort of like how we were talking a second ago about how there's a conversation in the comments here in the live. That conversation will continue even into the replay, where people will respond to each other off each other's comments. And every time you have that, think about that. That's how you connect with people. And I remember when I first started LinkedIn and I was following John, and I began to see when John was posting all the different people that were commenting. And that's how I met Ella Orr. I remember she left a comment, and I responded to the comment, and she responded to my response. It was got 6 comments deep. And then I sent her, a request to invite, because obviously we had so much in common. We were seeing the world the same way. And it was just from there, we became friends. So it's just wonderful how that can happen. So even anybody on this live today, you have the ability, I think, to message other people that attended the live, even if you're not connected. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I
I
think
believe so.
through
And
that
also,
networking tab.
also remember, if you see someone who's got a gold badge next to their name, the LinkedIn Premium, almost certainly they will have the open profile feature turned on, which means that you can message them completely for free, without connecting with them, without sending a personalized invitation. So some people aren't necessarily particularly open to receiving those messages, but often that route is possible. And I try to reinforce that to a lot of people who want to ask me questions for the podcast, for example, but who aren't connected with me. And I just say, you can just hit the message button. It doesn't matter. Anyone on LinkedIn can hit that button and send me a message completely for free. So keep that in mind as well.
Awesome. And Mary says, I remember when I went to connect with John, I had to use the secret word, and I still don't think pineapple belongs on pizza.
Yeah. So for people who are confused reading that, in my about statement, I have a secret word. And if you use that word when you invite me to connect, then I know that you're a human being, because a bot wouldn't have put 2 and 2 together there. So you've used the secret word, you're much more likely to get my attention. So that concept, I mean, anyone can use that. I've been using that for, I think, 7 years now. When personalized invitations were open to everyone on free accounts, I think about maybe 15% of the people who invited me would use the secret word. It's probably down to about 5% now because of those restrictions. So that's not great, but at least it means for those 5% of people, I know that they're real. I'm going to give them a bit more attention, and it shows that they've read my profile. So it's a very simple thing to do. Go and update your about statement. Put something in there that is a signal. It's a conversation hook, and it's your chance to kind of embed a bit more humanity in the way you show up on LinkedIn.
Love that. And Lynn says, or maybe they attended Uplift Live, which is 324 in Birmingham, UK. So is that 320?
Almost. It's 326.
Close. It was just like, did they didn't look right to me. So do you want to say a little word about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's less than 2 weeks away now. It's our third annual conference. So we're independently run and we talk about LinkedIn best practice all day. We have international grade speakers who talk about various topics on LinkedIn. So Gillian very kindly flew over for our very first conference to speak there. This year we've got Brenda Meller coming over from the United States, and I've been waiting to meet her since about 2018. So that's going to be fantastic to see her, but lots of other great speakers on stage as well. So it's a day of learning and networking. And for those who can't make it, we also have a live stream. So our prices are going to be going up in about a week. So now is the time to hop on that. So yeah, if you look up Uplift Live, or if you connect with me, I can tell you more about it. But it is the UK's original and only conference on LinkedIn best practice, because LinkedIn don't really do their own conferences in the same way. They do events in London, but that's always more around the kind of marketing solutions and brands thing, rather than helping real people get ahead on LinkedIn. So we fill that space in the UK, and yeah, just almost 2 weeks to go until the big day on the 26th of March.
Okay, great. So we talked about the free LinkedIn groups, but I want to talk about the value of paid communities, because I'm in your paid community.
Yeah.
And Espresso Plus, it started off as a free LinkedIn group. You already
Mm.
said, okay, I just couldn't, it either had to go or it had to level up into something premium. So
Yeah.
I, no holds bar, totally endorse your group. I'm a founding member. I have loved being a member of this community. Can you let's talk about the value of paid communities, and then also talk about yours.
Yeah, well, it's a space to belong, I think, and we all need a bit of that. Often we'll have questions that aren't the kind of things that you can easily Google. You want to feel that you're speaking to other people who've walked the same walk as you. And in private communities, often you can be a little bit more vulnerable. You can say the things that you wouldn't necessarily say in a public space. And I kind of lent on all of those things when I started the free group. But as I said, when it got too busy, I had to monetize it in the end, because otherwise I was going to have to get rid of it, which would have made me very sad. But I just thought, well, a discussion space is great, but it's not enough. We need to do a bit more than that before we can call ourselves a proper community. So, I set up a separate private video channel and a podcast, and we've got a website and a members map and various other bits and pieces. So it's a place where people can have an identity and belong, and they can say, yes, I'm trying to do my best to market my business, whatever that is, responsibly online, and mostly on LinkedIn, but we apply to all elements of business, really. And that means that we've attracted people from around the world who have the same kind of instincts and principles. So they don't want to just buy a load of followers, or they don't want to just join an engagement pod, or just place a load of ads to try and get ahead. They want to do things ethically, and that does take time. But it means, because we all kind of think the same way, it means that you've got someone to rely on, someone to ask questions, and know that you're going to get an earnest answer from others. And people will share their mistakes. And if people see, anything that is new or weird on LinkedIn, for example, they'll share that first in the community often before they write about it in public. So it's a lovely place to belong. We've been running for 4 years now. And you can see, the members of the community are on the post-it notes behind me. They always come with me on all of my calls. So yeah, it's certainly a lot of hard work to run it. It's an extension of what I said about LinkedIn groups. It's hard to keep the machine going, because I do run the community by myself. I mean, you're one of my welcoming committee for the LinkedIn discussion group, and I really appreciate that. But I don't have any employees, I don't have any virtual assistants. I'm running the show by myself, and that's one of the negative experiences I've had in the past of being in some other communities, is that you get attracted in by a kind of a big name, if you will, relatively speaking, but then that person actually isn't at the forefront driving anything. That they've kind of handed over control to someone else. And I don't really like that. If you're coming into the community because you know that you align with my beliefs and you want to get my knowledge and you want to speak to me on group calls and stuff like that, well, yeah, I'm going to be there for all of that stuff. And so if you pay to be in the community, you're going to get me. And those people, they're paying my bills, so why wouldn't I give them my attention? So yeah, that's where we are at the community. It's about 100 members or so. It's not a big place to be, but it means that we get to know each other, and people form friendships. And obviously, as you've said earlier, we actually get to meet each other as well from time to time, and that's a wonderful place to be.
It is. And I have actually met in person many of the people. I've met them on coffee dates, and I've met them in England and the UK and everything else. And I think, for me, the value has been that I have access to you. I have access to your expertise. So I like the Q&A calls, but I also like the community. And that's the difference between, I've been in some communities where it's just about the leader. The leader, it's like you're there for them only. But I think with Espresso Plus, the thing that I've liked is there's a great mix of LinkedIn trainers and non-LinkedIn trainers. There's just business professionals. So you have so many different kinds of people that you get that balance. And yet, you can kind of come with any question, because it's just hard to remember everything, or it's hard to just go, why is my profile in Chinese today? I don't understand what's going on. So it kind of brings us back to what we talked about this morning with McAdam. What is happening? And then, refresh the screen and everything takes care of itself. So that's good. Good. So John, I just want to end with one last thing, and that's about building your inner circle. So whoever is joining us today, I think it's just really important to have that inner circle of people that, whether it's through a free community, a paid community, you've just made some great collaborations with other authors. You've made collaborations with industry experts, having that inner circle that has your back. And John, I just wonder, do you have any sort of examples of like why you want that inner circle? Because sometimes, maybe we get kicked off LinkedIn or something like that. Do you have any stories about why it's important to have that inner circle?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a very good example there. So people in my community occasionally have been kicked off LinkedIn. I'm thinking of one person in particular, and the only way for me to contact her was through WhatsApp and to say, what's going on? We can't see you on LinkedIn. And she was like, yeah, I've been kicked off. No idea why. They won't explain anything. And then you end up trying to support someone through a different channel to get themselves back on LinkedIn. So if you haven't made good connections with people, those relationships are going to break very, very easily in times of crisis. You need to form that inner circle so that you've got someone you can really rely on. So group chats on LinkedIn are a great way of doing that. Group chats on WhatsApp as well. I mean, I'm in a group chat with my conference co-organizers, Jeremy and Gus. At the moment, we seem to be chatting all day, every day. And so you end up knowing these people inside out, and that you can rely on them for anything. It doesn't have to be business, actually. You are making friends here. And people don't often think that LinkedIn could be something like that, but it can be the substrate through which amazing relationships form. So invest that time getting to know people. And if you can get into the group chats, that's really powerful. And we haven't even talked about it today, but I send so many things like voice notes and video notes as a way of really just communicating the humanity of a situation. And you can see that it's really me talking. It's not my bot that I have delegated to run my life for me. It's really me. And that means, you're more likely maybe to care about what I've got to say, because you can see that I'm giving a tiny portion of my life over to communicating with you. So do more of those things if you can. And if you want to practice any of those things, if you want to practice the mechanics of sending voice notes and sending video notes and so, by all means, use me as a guinea pig, because I love doing this stuff. I love teaching people how to be a bit more human in your communication style. And I would say, if someone with if someone with almost 50,000 followers can do that effectively on LinkedIn without using any external tools or hiring anyone else to do it, I think the average LinkedIn user can do it. I fully believe this is possible. So if you need some practice with doing that, by all means reach out. I'd be happy to have a chat with you. And yeah, find out who your people are and stick to them as much as possible, because I think we all need a bit more of that in the world these days.
I love that. I love that. And I'll put in an extra tip that if you leave John a very interesting question as a voice note, he might select you to be on his podcast. And he did one of mine. So that was kind of fun to hear, my little message on a podcast. So it's fun. So for testing, he's not going to do that to you, but definitely, reach out to people. I'm the same way. I have an open profile. So it's like, I'm happy to take any kind of questions, get to know people. And like John, I send people video notes too, because those are just like, okay, you got my voice and my face in your face, with my little captions and everything. So I think that's a fun thing. So, John, thank you so much for being here today, sharing your knowledge and sharing just your relentlessly helpful way of just, making everything a better place, just making LinkedIn a better place, and just wish you all the best for everything. So, and thank you to everybody who joined us today, and we'll see you back next time with another LinkedIn for Authors masterclass. Okay, so let me just see. Okay, we're ready to go. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, Gillian.